Jones, look at that balance. Here comes the Cardinal blitz. Geno Smith, light spiral, intercepted by Tyler. We're back.
Well, it's Monday night, a new week has begun. I turn on
Saw that coming, and Daffy's coming over after getting that hand hit. And then Shaq Barrett plays, looking at that hand.
The biggest game each week is there.
The touchdown. We saw Philip Lindsay come off the field indicating an issue with his right hand. You can see right there.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? We're ready. Are you ready for some football? A Monday night party. Hey, this is rockin' random, Hank. Ready to get the good time started.
Welcome to week 5 of Are You Ready for a Podcast, the official podcast of Are You Ready for Some Football, Fantasy Football League. I'm your every week host Joe. I'm not joined by Parker this week. He is working nights at the hospital this week. And we mentioned that at the beginning of the season, he would have to miss a couple due to his schedule, his work schedule. So just me this week. We will have an interview with Morgan at the back half of this episode, but for the recap and for the power rankings, it'll just be me. Parker did send in some notes and his power rankings, as he is wanted to do. So I will read those off as we get to each matchup and as we get to the power rankings. But you just got me this week, so just so you don't have to look at my face all the time, I'm just going to screen share for this portion of the episode, and we'll go from there. And so y'all be able to see like all the matchups in real time. And so our first matchup of the week, which was the most anticipated matchup, I think, for me, and I think for Parker also, was Hunter and Colin. Hunter and Colin were, have been the top two teams atop of our power rankings the last couple of weeks. And, the matchup really lived up to the hype. It was very back and forth throughout Sunday. It was a really close matchup. And then, Colin got a pretty bad performance from the Bucs D against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and then Hunter got huge performance out of Tyler Higbee. Well, an okay performance out of Tyler Higbee, and then a huge performance out of the Niners D, which ended up giving him a 23-point win. He was down by 13 and then ended up getting, or down by 11 or something like that, and ended up getting 34. So huge performance from Hunter. Parker's notes on the matchup: it was Hunter's 22nd 125-point game. That ties Parker for the most of all time. It was Hunter's 60th 100-point game. And Colin lost the second most points this week. That's the first time this happened since week 13 of last year, when Dan actually lost to Colin. Obviously, Colin had a lot of best weeks last year. And then the second leading scorer has now lost 3 out of the last 9 weeks. So the first and second leading scorer have faced off 3 of the last 9 times. And then that the second leading scorer in the week hadn't lost in the previous 23 times before that. So pretty unfortunate downward trend for your second leading scorers of the week the last few weeks. And Colin was actually 5-0 as the second leading scorer of the week before this week. So I guess he was due a little bit, although 5-0 is not too many games. I think for Hunter, I think not really much to take away. Derrick Henry's obviously a stud. I think he's the best running back in fantasy right now, which I think would make him the most valuable player. Gotta like what you saw from him and Jefferson, getting them back on track. Jamal Williams stepping in for DeAndre Swift there. Big games. A little bit concerning for Gabe Davis, I guess, for Hunter. I guess we'll see going forward, but I think the rest of his roster is more than good enough to kind of make up for that. And I still like Gabe Davis rest of the season. He actually did do this. He started Curtis Samuel over Josh Jacobs. So Josh Jacobs had a huge game on Sunday, and had he started him, he could have put up like 175 points, 176 points, I think. So Hunter seems obviously really good. For Colin, really good to see Austin Eckler get back on track for him. Scored 3 touchdowns, had a huge game. Was out without Amon-Ra and David Montgomery. And so that's kind of why me, Parker, and Zach all picked against him last week. It's tough to overcome those two. Those are 2 really good starters for him. And so kind of tough to overcome. Had a bad James Robinson game, who has looked obviously really good previously this season, and still put up 126, which is impressive. But just too many injuries to overcome. So we'll move on to speaking of Zach. He played Morgan, and Morgan finally got out of the winless section of the league. He was our last winless team. He he finally got a big win, and kind of finally got a little bit of points against. So Zach only put up 106.8. Morgan with 118.5, and Parker's notes on this are actually did not have any notes on this matchup. I had notes on the other 5 matchups, so no notes on this one. So I think for Morgan, he had a huge game from Debo on Monday night, which got him the win. We'll talk to Morgan a little bit more about this matchup later, so I'll kind of keep it short. But the big takeaway from Morgan is Dameon Pierce. I think if Dameon Pierce is a consistent, week in and week out, RB2, I think that's a really big thing for him. I think Morgan, I think had Nick not lost, we'll get to Nick's team next. But had Nick not lost, I think Morgan would actually have the best 1-3 team. So even though he started 0-3, I still kind of like where he is right now. And if you're 1-3, you're only a game out of the playoffs right now. So I do like where Morgan's at right now. Zach, just got some underwhelming performances. I still like Zach's team. Picked up Brady, so has maybe a little quarterback controversy with the 2 old guys there, but still I'm pretty high on Zach's team, and he's 3-1. He's in a good spot. So moving on. We'll get to the match of the week, and really a shame that Parker couldn't be here for this. Parker won 117.08 to 115.9 for Nick. We'll get to what happened here later, but Parker's notes on this are, he's now 8-4 against Nick. It's the best winning percentage. It's his best winning percentage against any opponent. And Nick has, according to Parker's luck rating or whatever, has the worst luck this season. He's projected 2.8 wins, and he's 1-3. So that's a negative 1.8 luck rating, I guess. So really the big takeaway here, the big storyline of the game was, Parker needed, going into Sunday night, actually, Parker was in a pretty good spot. He was up 8, I believe, with Mike Evans versus Cooper Kupp. So he's up 8 with the better receiver. And then Mike Evans just kind of put on a show and scored 2 touchdowns. Honestly, could have gotten 3rd, which would have given Nick the win. They threw to him a couple times for a 3rd, but had a huge game on Sunday night. And so Parker needed 18.1, I think, from Cooper Kupp on Monday. And he got it on the last drive when the Rams were down 2 touchdowns, and we're just kind of weren't really even trying to score. Really, what Sean McVay, he's really just trying to win Cooper Kupp fantasy owners games more than he's trying to win the Rams games. He just force feeds Cooper Kupp all the time. Doesn't really matter that Stafford looks washed. I mean, he's been awesome. Cooper Kupp, he's been, I think he's averaging more points than he did last year, which obviously had an unbelievable year last year. So yeah, I'm really ashamed that Parker can't be here to gloat about that. Really hate to see it. So our next matchup, it's me and Dan. We'll get to our thoughts a little later. It's really Parker's only note. It's my 75th loss. So obviously I was not motivated to lose my 75th game of all time. And yeah, so I guess a good win for Dan. Put up 107. Rashad Penny just absolutely destroyed me. That was a very high scoring game, and he scored a lot of touchdowns and played really well. And I kind of ruined my hopes. Honestly, I was going to do the whole, me and Parker kind of do the whole bits of oh, our team sucks. And Parker's like, oh, Kyle Pitts is a loser, even though he traded for him. And oh, my team's a bunch of losers. I'm not going to do that. This isn't on the guys. This is on me. This is managerial, just error after error after error by me. Travis Etienne was just, it was just a waste of $22. I don't know what you want to say. He's, he couldn't beat out a guy coming off of a torn Achilles 9 months ago, and I shouldn't have spent $22 on him. That is absolutely on me. That's a terrible pick by me. The Waddle and CD, but their quarterbacks have gotten hurt now, so I guess that's a little unlucky. Michael Pittman, I should have known Matt Ryan was washed. I mean, Matt Ryan sucks. I don't know how many Saints Falcons game I watched, which I had to, I don't know why I couldn't get that through my head. And then for this week, I could just so easily be 2-2. Obviously, I could be 3-1. The Austin thing and week 1 worked out differently, but I had Jared Goff all week. I picked him up, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown got declared out, and DJ Chark got declared out, and I just got cold feet, and I was like, you know what? You know what's a good idea? Marcus Mariota. That's what I thought was a good idea. And guess what Marcus Mariota did? Scored 30 fewer points than Jared Goff. 30 fewer points. That's inexcusable by me to drop Jared Goff. That would have won me the game. I lost by 27.5. Jared Goff scored 30 more points than Marcus Mariota. So that's a losing decision right there. I have basically cost myself 2 games. I could be 3-1 if I was just a competent manager this year. And I don't know, maybe I rested on my laurels after the championship. I'm the only 3-time champ. And maybe I just got, very satisfied with my standing in the league. And that's just unacceptable by me. And it's on me, and it's not on the guys. And we have a bunch of guys in there who are trying to win games. They're working hard. They're trying to win games, and I'm just not putting them in the right position. So I don't know what you want me to say here. Or that's about all I have to say there. But good one for Dan, I guess. Our second to last matchup is Grant and Austin. I kind of called this in the picks last week. I was like, this is kind of the legacy points against versus Austin, who's gotten very good points against like this year. And I was betting on Grant. I was betting on the legacy, and boy did that hit. Obviously it's very unfortunate that for Austin that Tua got hurt when he did. So you're not going to win many games with your quarterback scoring as few points as his did, as I can attest this week, because obviously my quarterback did not do very well. And really for Austin, I think the receivers are okay. He was without Kamara, which obviously he's without the guy he spent the most on at the draft, which is tough. But I think Cam Akers is the big takeaway from Austin. We thought maybe like he'd gotten a little more work the last couple of weeks. Like maybe Cam Akers would be okay. I think that their offense is just bad this year. I don't think Stafford's very good. Their line is not good. And I don't think Cam Akers is very good. And so I don't think I think he's still rosterable, but I don't think he's startable at all. So Austin actually, we'll get to it in picks with Morgan coming up, but Austin actually has pretty good running back luck this week. But I think moving past this week, I don't love where his running backs are at, and I don't think his receivers are good enough. Goddard's okay, and now he's stringing quarterbacks. So again, I felt kind of bad, kind of railing on Austin's team last week, especially because he beat me and he's 2-1. But I still don't really see it. Grant's just solid. Like he just puts up 100-point performances, and gets good points against luck, and that's just who he is at this point. He's just got the right attitude, and he's got, I think my team, I think I could learn a lot from Grant and how he manages, because he's just consistent week in and week out, and he's had the most success in the league over the last couple of years. And he doesn't let that success get to his head. And evidently that happened to me, but Grant is just he's just good every year. And I think there's something to be said for that. And so Parker's notes on this one were, so it's Grant's 75th 100-point game, which is the most of all time. He's now 8-4 in weeks 2, 3, and 4. Grant is, which is the best win percentage of any week for all 3 of those weeks. And Austin is now 3-6 against Grant, which is his worst winning percentage against any opponent. Not very surprising, because Austin is our newest member of the league, and Grant has had some very recent success. So our final matchup is Ben and Thomas, and boy oh boy was this a defensive slugfest. Parker's notes on this one. So it's Thomas's 150th game played. Ben is now 8-4 in week 4, which is his best winning percentage in any week. And Ben won with the 10th most points, which is the first time that's happened this season. So the lowest somebody has been, nobody's won with the 11th most points this year. But now this is the first time that somebody's won with the 10th most points. And he almost won with the 11th most points because he beat me by 0.1. So if I had played Ben this week and I had lost 2 games now this season by 0.1, we wouldn't be having a podcast, and we might not have a league anymore, because I would have ended everything. Anyway, yeah, so Thomas, the big takeaway for Thomas is that Javonte Williams tore his ACL, and that's just really tough for Thomas, who he built his team on running backs and on some sleeper receivers. And you can kind of keep sleeping on the receivers, because they're not good at all. Allen Robinson and Juju have not been good this year. And he didn't have DeAndre Swift this week, he'll get him back in the next couple weeks, but he the strength of his team was these 4 running backs, and now he's only got 3. Mixon I think is still good. Swift is still good. Breece Hall is kind of coming into his own, but I don't think that's enough. And he picked up Kirk, so he's streaming quarterbacks. Ertz has been actually really good this year, but he's kind of a pretty good tight end. And I don't think a pretty good tight end is enough to kind of elevate your team. For Ben, I wouldn't have much to many positives to take away. I think so. Stafford was terrible, and so Ben addressed that his quarterback need, and I guess we can kind of transition into the trade. But yeah, so other than Miles Sanders, who's looked really good this year, has been a huge bright spot for Ben. Kind of whatever. I think as weeks go by, the trade he made with Parker is going to look even worse. I know Pitts didn't look great this week for Parker, but Kittle, they just use him as he's just a left tackle. They just use him as a blocker, and they don't throw him the ball. And so he's a really good real life tight end. He's probably not a good fantasy or he's an okay fantasy tight end, but he's not an elite fantasy tight end anymore. And so I just don't know what Ben was thinking there. And he gave up Olave on another good game, and Olave is really good. So we'll get to the trade actually before power rankings, but Ben and Colin made a trade. Colin finally got off of traded Mahomes there. That's been a big storyline this season. And so Colin traded him to Ben for Devin Duvernay and Jerry Jeudy. For Ben, I think this makes a lot of sense. I know I kind of said that about Parker's trade, and then I really soured on it, but I don't think I'll sour on this one for Ben. Stafford sucks, and so unless Ben wants to stream quarterbacks, although he did say Mahomes is going to be there to kind of learn from Stafford, so I don't know how much I agree with that, but so I think this is good for Ben. Jeudy and Duvernay they're pretty good, but they're the number 2 receivers on their offense, and I think Jeudy is a worthy dart throw to take for Colin. I kind of thought Colin would use Mahomes as a piece to upgrade at a position, not to get more depth, but teach their own. And I think Jeudy could end up being pretty good for him. Duvernay, I think he's a spot start and they're a bye week fill in. Very rosterable player and kind of so that's basically it for this past week. Nothing really interesting on waivers, so we'll move on to the power rankings. Honestly, very, very similar power rankings. You will see them right here. So for me and Parker have, I believe, the same top 8 and the same bottom team. So the only differences we have are me, Dan, and Ben. And I have that rank. Well, I guess we can go read 12 to 1. But so I have Thomas at 12. I think the injuries have been kind of too much to overcome right now for him. I have me at 11. My teams look terrible, and I don't have any depth. And I have 1 running back and 3 receivers, and that's it. And I guess my tight end's been okay. Ben at 11. He's 2-2, and he beat me, so that's kind of why he's ahead of me. I think our teams are pretty similar. Maybe I'm a little better, but he beat me on the field, and so I think he warrants a spot up. I have Dan at 9, who also beat me and has a better team than Ben, and is 2-2. Austin at 8, also 2-2, but like I said, I don't think the team is in a great spot right now. Morgan at 8, who I actually think his team's in a little better spot, even though he's 1-3, and these 3 teams below him are at 2-2. Nick also at 1-3. I still think Nick's team is good. He's got to start winning some games, but he got off to a rough start last year and turn around. And I still like his team. I think obviously like I talked about, I think the Melvin Gordon thing is huge for him. And then Parker at 5. I kind of like Parker and Nick's teams. I feel pretty similarly against, but they just played on the field, and Parker beat him. If Cooper Kupp doesn't get that last catch, these teams will probably switch. But that's why they play the games, and Parker beat him. So he's 2-2. He's got a good team. He's in a good spot. I have Zach at 4, 3-1. Not a ton to worry about. Got a little worse points against luck this week, but I still like his team. I think it's solid, and he's 3-1. Grant also the same. I was pretty Grant and Zach, I compared pretty closely. And it was really close, but I like Grant's bench a little more, and I like Grant's team a little bit more, and I trust Grant's pedigree more. So I had Grant at 3, and then Colin at 2. I still really, really like his team. He has more depth now. And he's still got a ton of upside. I think Eckler coming back into his own was really good, and he'll get Amon-Ra back, he'll get Mott back, and he'll be good. And then kind of indisputable, Hunter at number 1, 4-0, only undefeated team. Just has really, really great high upside players. Has Nyheim Hines this coming up week with Jonathan Taylor out, as Jamal probably for another week or two. And then obviously his studs are really good. So I think it's pretty indisputable Hunter at number 1. Like I said, Parker has the same top 8. He has me at 9 and Dan and Ben at 11, because here's the thing with Parker, he will jinx me at any chance he gets, and he doesn't trust on-field results. He just thinks in his mind, whoever's better matters more than like actually playing on the field. So that's what Parker was doing. So so that is it for the power rankings this week. And for the recap, we will be back and right after the break with an interview with Morgan and picks for week 5. So thank you very much. Okay, welcome back. This is our interview portion of the episode. We welcome on 2016 DJ winner, 2017 and 2019 Haney winner, Morgan. Morgan, coming off the big win, his first of the season. How's it going?
Pretty good. Feeling good.
All right. So I guess we'll just start with kind of, you were the last 0-3 team, or you were the last winless team going into last week. I think Zach had some choice words on the podcast for your team and about y'all's matchup. I also talked a little shit. I said he'd put up 150, I think. So I'll give you a chance to just respond if you have anything to say.
Well, look, my team took it to heart in the locker room, got it right this week. Zach, I think he's talking a big game, but he scored only had 4 more points than me. He has like 190 less against. I'm just saying his luck is going downhill now. I think he's going to lose the next 2-3 in a row. I think it's going to happen.
I mean, he's got a pretty tough stretch coming up. He's got a good team, but I think he's got his work cut out for him. But so I mean, obviously your team it has gotten off to a rough start. You haven't gotten you've had very bad points against luck. That's been a bugaboo for a lot of struggling teams in the past. Like, it doesn't really matter how good your team sometimes is if other teams are just so much or score so much against you. But so how do you how are you keeping the team morale? How are you keeping the team morale like high? And how are you keeping players engaged after such a tough start? And when after, what is it, like you had like 500 or you had like 490 points against or something like that through 3 weeks. Like, how do you keep the team morale high after that?
Well, look, I told him, we're getting it out of the way early, right? We're getting these high scores out the way. We're going to get into a little easier stretch, right? We had a rough few people we faced, right? We had Colin, was it Hunter, and who was the other person that played?
I can pull it up. Was it
Grant? Right.
Yeah, it might have been Grant, right?
Well, the leaderboards, right? Those are 3 of the top 4 teams currently based on record, and I think points. So we faced the probably the hardest stretch we're gonna have to face for a little bit. We're gonna get a little easier going. We haven't got a full roster really. Week 1 lost Keenan.
Mm-hmm.
I think hopefully we get him back this week. Maybe we'll see what the lineup's like with a little more consistent flex. I've been, whether it be Bateman in there, he didn't do that well last week. Just thinking that my team is, I think they're getting their stuff going. David Pierce is starting to get some work. Debo and Jeff Wilson have been doing well. So I think as long as they stay consistent, I think we can beat most teams. Obviously, I think my ceiling might not be as high as some others, but if they can be consistent, those teams are going to have. If they don't hit their ceiling, it's like I'm going to beat them.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point about bad scheduling luck, so you did lose to Hunter, Colin, and Grant. Those are the top 3 teams in both me and Parker's power ranking. So just a tough start to the season. But you mentioned Keenan Allen. You mentioned kind of some of your roster, and I think you and Nick kind of got the season started off on a very interesting and and a very newsworthy note, which was y'all made the big trade. How through 4 weeks have you felt about that trade?
I kind of feel like I might have, in my eyes, I think I won the trade. Dameon Pierce, first week was kind of rough, but I think they were just trying to work him back into the offense more, working more into it. But now, he's getting 15, 20 attempts a game. They're starting to throw to him. And we saw last week they were down like 27-7, and he was still getting carries and everything. So like game script didn't seem to matter. Jalen Hurts, I think I upgraded at quarterback. I mean, Justin Herbert's still really good, but Jalen Hurts got a lot of upside. And then T. Higgins, I think honestly, like he might have a better fantasy year than Jamar this year, just because everyone's double teaming Jamar and everything. He's looked pretty good, pretty consistent. And then obviously Debo is a stud as well when they get going. So I think it overall benefits both. I think Nick's team, especially AJ Brown and Devontae, are gonna, they're gonna have big games. Like AJ Brown's been pretty consistent. He just got to get in the red zone a little more, and then Devontae's Devontae. So I think overall, I think it was a pretty even trade. I heard some things, from Ben saying, why would I want to make that trade? I mean, look, it worked out. Ben said some trades. Doesn't have a bench anymore.
Yeah,
That's
true. I actually agree with you because I think when we the first couple of weeks it really looked like Nick was going to run away with it a little bit, and then with just how good Devontae Adams and AJ Brown were, but I think after that Herbert got hurt and Jalen Hurts is just awesome. I think Jalen Hurts is the second best quarterback in fantasy. He's just so good week in, week out. And then Dameon Pierce, like that was the big swing you took, and it was a little unsure after those first couple of weeks, and he's really come on strong. And I think he's a week in, week out running back 2 for you. Maybe running back 1. He might be better than Najee. Who knows?
I think he is. Najee is I don't know. The Steelers just suck. I don't know.
Yeah. So like we mentioned, you're 2016 DJ winner. Last year you made the playoffs. You had a really solid season last year, and then kind of in the playoff kind of ran into the worst matchup possible. And kind of talking about your points against like this year, I kind of put a good heft of points on you there in week 1 of the playoffs and eliminated you. But I think this is kind of normally Parker's question, but what is the message to the fan base right now? How are we going to get back to the playoffs and make back-to-back appearances there?
We gotta be consistent. We can't have these down weeks, right? We can't be scoring 80 points. Even if the team scored 150 against me, I gotta come out, make it respectable, So if we do that more times than not, we'll probably win the matchup. If we're scoring 150, 120, we're probably gonna win most weeks, unless you run into a team that scores, 130 plus, But what can you do about that? And playoffs, I just give a team they just gotta play well, They just, every time I play you, Joe, your team likes to do pretty well against me. So, I'm just trying to stay consistent, not trying to be the loser again this year. I think my team's better than the record shows. I think we're looking at the first team that's gonna start 0-3 and make the playoffs. Is all we're saying here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll get the stretch of, I think it's Ben, Parker, Austin, or an X3. Look, we win all those. We're 4-3. We're above 500 going week 7. So I think we just gotta stay consistent. I can't be having 3 or 4 people on my bench or on my team get 5 points or whatever. I need some touchdowns.
Yeah, and as I just talked about in the power ranking segment, I think it's pretty close between you and Nick as the best 1 and 3 teams right now. I have Nick slightly ahead of you, but I think those are. But I mean, and like I was saying, at 1 and 3, you're only a game out of the playoffs right now, and I like you more than Austin's team, Dan's team, and Ben's team, who are all 2 and 2. And you have yet to play all them, so you do control your own destiny for sure. You did mention your couple last place finishes. I just want to know Parker was a little iffy on whether on how he completed his challenges. You did a very good job in completing all your last place punishments in a timely manner. So what do you think about the new last place punishment?
I think it's for any of these new guys that are coming in that might get last. I understand it because some of them were exponentially growing, and they're gonna get pretty difficult. Trying to eat like 13 beers or drink 13 beers and eat like 13 donuts. You know, that kept going up. You know, eventually we got 20, and it's a lot. But you know, I think they're missing out. You know, it's a rite of passage. You know, getting last place. You know, and now this year you just got to like upgrade the trophy and you're good. I don't know. I mean, I think it makes sense. I think we've been playing long enough. No one's really going to be. I think we've gotten rid of like people throwing. And now that we do auction, you can't really even like do draft picks and that. So there's no like benefit of tossing your team. So I mean, I think it's fine now. You know.
Yeah, and I think we wanted to, you know, at winter meetings we wanted to spice something up a little bit, and we wanted there to be the Russian roulette element of, you know, maybe you get last and you just got to drive it, you know, 10 minutes down the road in Baton Rouge, and maybe you got to ship it to Utah. You know, you just never know. So. It also makes things interesting to kind of cheer against, like you're gonna have like the whole league cheering against like Grant and Nick.
Yeah, especially Nick. No,
yeah,
that's gonna be awful because no one's gonna make that drive, and to ship that thing would be like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, so high risk, high reward, or I guess high risk, low. I don't know. A big variance in what the risk is. All right, so we'll move on to pick. Actually, before we get to picks, we usually get this at the end of the episode. We'll get to it before picks. So who do you think the best team in the league is, and who do you think is going to win the championship?
Honestly, I think the best team is Hunter. Probably Colin's close, but I think Hunter is just like even. I mean, he just played Colin this week and beat him, right? I think his team they're so consistent and like his ceiling's so high, but like his floor is also high, like with those players, it feels like. So I think it's Hunter. Hunter has been notoriously has had like good teams during the year, and then playoffs aren't usually his friend. You know, his team fizzles out. So I'm hoping, you know, if he makes it, his team is the best. Like, you know, I think he deserves to win if he does this year. You know, obviously, like if he runs into me, like I'm gonna try to beat him. But you know, I think he's had a bad because Hunter's never won, right?
No, he's never won. He's lost 4 times in the championship.
That's what he's due, right? There's no way he goes 0-5 if he makes a championship this year. So I have to go with Hunter, I think.
Yeah, and he's in a great spot to get a bye right now. So I do like his chances. Okay, so we'll get to picks. Parker sent his in and also sent some matchup notes on each matchup. We're gonna start a little different. I think it'll generally be the same order, but I'm gonna start highest point total between the two teams to lowest point total between the two teams, as opposed to we usually do what the projected winner's highest point total is. So the first one wouldn't matter regardless. It's Colin versus Dan. Big 2-2 matchup here. Colin is a projected 122.7 to 115.5. So that's a 238.2 total. I think we'll start with Parker's pick. Parker's notes on this are that he only has one. It's that Colin has won the last 3 against Dan, including the playoffs last year. He beat Dan in the first round of the playoffs. I like Colin to make that 4 in a row. I like Colin's team a lot better. Dan just beat me. Had I not made an egregious quarterback decision of Jared Goff to Marcus Mariota, Dan, I would have beaten Dan, and Dan would be 1-3. Still don't love Dan's team. I think it's a little bit of a fraudulent 2-2. But and Colin's team has been great. You know, he just kind of ran into Hunter last week. So Parker is also picking Colin. And so what do you think, Morgan?
It's just crazy. I'm gonna go with the upset, I think.
Oh, I like it.
Just look like Dan's team, obviously on paper, not better than Colin's by any means. You know, he's starting 2 New England running backs, but if you look at his matchups, like the matchups are crazy in favor of Dan. The Lions are awful. They give up so many points to running back. I mean, like, how many gave, like 28 or something to Rashad Penny? Like,
yeah. Yep.
So, and the Patriots, we know they love to run the ball. So I think both of those running backs could probably get close to their projections, honestly. You know, the Chargers gave up a ton to Dameon Pierce. I'm sure Chubb and Kareem are both going to do really well. The Ravens, they've gone up a lot. You know, Joe Burrow, look good. I think he's got a lot of upside in his team. If they play well, I think he can win. So I'm gonna go with Dan. I'm gonna go with Dan with the points.
Okay, I like that. All right, we're just picking outright.
Sorry. I'm going with Dan to beat him.
Yeah. Well, kind of speaking of that, you know, one thing I don't love about Dan's team, he's starting both of the Patriots running backs. So I think that limits his upside a little bit. So
it definitely does. Yeah. But I mean, I guess the problem is looking at Pollard and Rashad Penny, they have some pretty bad matchups with, you know, Seattle playing the Saints. We normally have a pretty stout run D, and then The
Mhm.
Rams also haven't really allowed that many points, so I guess he's just banking on the Lions being terrible.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, their defense hasn't been bad. Yeah. So our next matchup is Hunter and Zach. Hunter is a projected 119.9 to 113.1. So that is a 233 point total against Zach. And so Parker's notes on this are that it's Hunter's 160th game in the league. Zach is looking for his 10th 125 point game of his career. And Zach is 6-2 in week 5, which is his best win percentage of any week, along with week 11. So Zach is very good in week 5. Parker likes Zach over Hunter actually, and the upset. You have played both of these teams. You lost to Hunter. You beat Zach. What do you think?
Honestly, I think Hunter is going to win. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's. I mean, Zach's team his running backs are good. His receivers are. Not bad, right? I mean, Diggs is really good, but I think I'm actually going to take the over this game. I think it's going to be like a 130 to 115 or 120 kind of range. I'm going to take the over this game.
Yeah, that nice like 250 total there. Yeah, I think I'll take Hunter. I think Hunter's kind of in the zone of Grant last year, where I just got to the point of not betting against Grant, and it obviously ended up working out a lot because Grant won a lot of games. And I think Hunter's kind of in that zone right now. And Zach, I think Zach's team is good, but I don't know if it has the upside of Hunter's team. So our next matchup, it'll be me against Grant. Speaking of Grant, he is a projected 116.5 to 106.8 point favorite. That is 223.3 total. Parker's notes on this are that well, let me see here. I'm looking for my 70th 100 point game. I've not been scoring very. I've not had a lot of 100-point games this year, and this is the most played matchup in league history with 21 occurrences, including last year's championship where I won. I am 12-9, which is my most wins against an opponent, and Grant's most losses against another opponent. I won both of the meetings last year in the regular season and the playoffs, and we've played at least twice every year since 2015. Usually Grant. Kind of in the last couple of years before last year had gotten the better of me, but last year I also got the better of him. Parker likes Grant to beat me. I've got to agree. I'll start with my thoughts. My team is just not in a good spot right now. Like I said in the power rankings, I have one running back I like and 3 receivers and a tight end who's okay, and everybody else is just awful. I have a huge hole at running back 2. I have a huge hole at my flex 2. I have a big hole at my quarterbacks. I haven't been able to get that right. So that's just too many holes against the team that's as good as Grant. So I am definitely going to take Grant big here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna do some crazy. I'm going with the upset again. I think I think Grant's team is better. Leonard and Chubb can both. The teams are playing, they could score a lot of points. But I think, ETN, he's been getting some more touches, and they are playing Houston. So, and Houston they've been given a lot of points, game script maybe. They might put Travis Etienne a little bit more. I think Pittman, without Jonathan Taylor, they're going to have to throw to him a lot. I mean, they haven't looked that great running the ball anyways. So I think maybe Pittman will get a big game this week. Waddle, obviously, playing the Jets. That's pretty good. I think and CeeDee Lamb's looked great too, honestly, the last 2 weeks. So I think you have a chance. So I think I'm gonna go with the upset here. I'm a big upset guy this week.
All right. Well, I mean, if my luck were to ever, or my history of luck were to ever kick in at any point this year, it would have to be this week, because we're kind of getting close to the wire here of me pressing the panic button. And yeah, I think I'm worried about that Pittman game just because I think that'll just be an ugly, low-scoring game.
Oh yeah, the game. That's what that's the only problem I have with it. The game's going to be awful. It's going to be a low-scoring game, but maybe Pittman gets one of those 2 touchdowns or something that they score.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So our next matchup is actually you, Morgan. It's you were a big projection winner, 115.7 to 99 against Ben. So that is a total of 214.7. Parker's notes on this are that Ben is looking for a 75th win after getting a 74th last week. And he's actually 10-7 against you. It's his best winning percentage and his most wins against any other opponent. You obviously bested him, y'all's most famous matchup in the 2016 DJ, where you got your championship. And so Parker likes Ben to beat you, actually pull the upset. So what are your thoughts here?
Look, Parker's been going against me all year. Okay, I just think my team's just on paper just better in almost every spot, except for maybe running back. I think Miles Sanders has been pretty good. I also have Jalen Hurts, so I'm going to be rooting for the Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown instead of Miles Sanders. But he did upgrade at quarterback, but I don't necessarily love the flexes per se. When first come back from concussion injury, and Las Vegas hasn't looked too great really. And Kittle obviously has also just been like assigned to being like a guard. So I don't know. I think I got some good matchups. If Keenan plays, they're playing the Browns, who are awful. I think the Bengals in that game could be pretty high scoring. Debo playing the Panthers. So I'm really banking on my team doing a little bit of work, but I think I'm going to come out with the win, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think another big thing against Ben, I do think Mahomes will help, but he did trade, I don't know if Judy's supposed to play this week. He did trade Judy, and he's not going to have Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson is not hurt. That's been a big part of his team. It looks like we'll get Keenan Allen back, which is obviously a big boost for your receiving core there. So, and then, yeah, just top to bottom, I think your team's better. We've kind of discussed your team a fair amount, and I have discussed Ben's team a lot throughout the year, and still don't love it, even though he is gone up in the power rankings a little bit. Still don't like it as much as your team. So I will take you to a win. Our next matchup is Austin against Parker. Speaking of Parker, and that is Austin actually, because of Jonathan Taylor's injury, is now favored 107 to 103.7. That's a 210.7 total in this game. Parker's notes here. This is Parker's 160th game of all time. Parker is 8-3 all time in week 5. His best record in any week. He changed his team name to King of Week 5. It's Austin's 90th game. Obviously, Austin is our newest member. Austin is 47.5 points from 9,000, which would be 12th all time. Don't really know what that means. We have 12 teams in the league, so I guess he's just ahead of all the teams that are no longer in the league. And Austin is 1-5 all time in week 5, his worst record in any week. So a big week 5 matchup here. Doesn't look like it's trending well for Austin. Parker likes shockingly, Parker likes himself to lose. He has Austin beating him. So but I've never seen that one come in. You obviously get a good gauge of Austin's team from living with him. So what do you think about this matchup?
Look, he picked me that week when he was on. This pick is stipulating on if Michael Thomas plays. I know he was out of practice today.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does have Scary Terry that he could put in if he needs to. And I guess Ayuk. I think playing Seattle, I think Kamara could have a big game. I think Parker is going to. I think he's going to lose. I think it'll be close, and I think Parker used all his luck up on Monday Night Football to beat Nick. So I think he's going to have some regression here. I think Cooper Kupp is going to score a ton of points still, but maybe it's Trayvon Diggs. Maybe we'll shut him down a little bit. Maybe try. I don't know. I kind of like the Jared Goff pickup. The Lions just throw the ball a shit ton. So I'm thinking Austin's team. Obviously I'm not a big fan of the 2 Miami players and 2 New Orleans players. It kind of limits him. But obviously if he has those good games, Miami playing the Jets, it's a good game script probably for Mostert, and he'll probably get a lot of points. So then we go to Austin on this one. I think Parker was right. I think he's going to lose.
Yeah. Well, I am only going to take Parker because I refuse to give Austin the kiss of death, which would have Parker win. So I'm going to take Parker to win. Sure. I think the teams are pretty evenly matched. Without Jonathan Taylor, I think, with Jonathan Taylor, I would definitely take Parker, but it's a little bit closer. But I think Kyle Pitts is going to break out one of these weeks. I think guys like Lazard. I think he has Khalil Herbert for another week. It seems like he'll be the starter again. So I don't love the Thursday night matchup for us there, but again, I refuse to give Austin the kiss of death against Parker.
I also kind of think it might be better that Parker doesn't have to play Jonathan Taylor because the Colts haven't looked too good and Denver's been pretty good against the run. So I mean, he actually might get a blessing.
And he would have been maybe limited with his ankle, so maybe he wouldn't get as many carries. So yeah,
but you got to play him. You can't bench him if he's going to play.
Yeah, that's very valid. So the last match of the week, it will be Thomas against Nick. Nick, a big projected favorite here, 112.7 to 86.7 for Thomas. That's a 199.4 total there. Parker's notes here are that Nick is looking for a 75th win. Again, he apparently Parker's logic for Nick beating him last week was he was looking for a 75th, even though he's on a
3 weeks, right?
Yeah, he's now on a 3-game losing streak. So I guess he's really, really hungry this week. Nick is 12-7 against Thomas. It's his most wins and his best winning percentage against any opponent. Thomas's 7 wins against Nick are tied for his most against any opponent. So, got a pretty even, I guess not even matchup throughout history. Obviously, these two have the big history and, colluding to create the super team in year 1 of the league.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and Parker's pick is he has Nick over Thomas, pretty unsurprisingly. I'm actually 199.4. Generally, my rule is anytime a total is under 200, I'm going to take the over. I really like Nick's team, and I think he can do carry the large burden of this over. He has, obviously, we talked about this maybe low scoring matchup between Denver and Indianapolis. I still really like Melvin Gordon. Like Melvin Gordon, I think is going to be the bell count now with Javonte Williams down, and obviously that hurts Thomas's team, but it's a big boost for Nick's team. And I just kind of think like Thomas still has some competent players. I think he's the worst team in the league as of right now with all his injuries. But you put out some professional players out there, and they can get you 80 points, and that leaves it to Nick to get 120, and I think he can do that. So I'm going to take the over here. What do you think?
I like that pick. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Nick. Just A-Rob and Juju haven't been it this year. Now he's filled his flex, Robbie Anderson and Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar's looked pretty good the last few weeks, but he's doesn't really have a high ceiling usually. So, I just don't think he's going to have the firepower to keep up. And honestly, I think AJ Dillon will probably have a big week this week. Actually, I think he's due for one. And then obviously, the 2 receivers I traded him and the quarterback, they're all good. I think they all got pretty good matchups. So it should be. I think Nick's going to score a lot of points. I think it might be like a 130 to 80 score line or something. I think he's going to blow out Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's very possible. We'll see how much pride Thomas's team has. Also, before we go, I forgot to mention this before we record the picks. So last week, again, I continue my tear at on the picks this year. I went 5-1 last week. Parker, a good week last week at 4-2. Zach, very underwhelming, 2-4. That brings the season total to I'm at 19-5. Parker is 8 games back already at 11-13. And then the guest is 10 games back at 9-15. So Morgan, your fellow league mates have put you in a little bit of a hole, and we'll see if you can start to dig your way out of it here.
Look, I'm gonna need some of these upsets to hit this week, and then they're looking good.
Yeah, I mean, you and Parker did. I think I went a little more chalk. You and Parker picked a couple upsets. So, so that will do it for week 5 of Are You Ready for a Podcast? Fantasy football podcast. We will be back next week. Parker should be back. I don't think he's working nights next week, so. We will be back next week with another guest. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks, Morgan, for joining us this week.
Yep, no problem.
This telecast is copyrighted by the NFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or of any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the NFL's consent is prohibited.